G'day guys, Willie here, and today I'm going to take my mouth on a trip to England. England. So skilled. Ben, I have your ball. Get it off me when you want. Yes, England. Land of the free and the home of the brave. Wait. Beer has long been a part of a healthy diet in England, and we can credit the English with many different styles of beer. Bitters, brown ales, mild ales, old ales. Yes, we certainly can credit the English with ales. What ails you, lad? Oh my god, bad jokes. They'd like to say that they made stouts, but I think you got to give that one to the Irish. They did it better. Am I just doing a British themed video because I just did a Brexit one? No, maybe. There's nothing more traditional sounding than an English bitter, and I'm lucky enough to have two here with me. The term bitter is very loosely applied to hoppy English pale ales. Because pale ales cover such a broad range of beers, those quirky Brits have devised a nice system to help us sort them out. It's a pretty rough system, but it'll do. First up you have session bitters, or ordinary bitters. This is a term usually applied to the weakest bitter from a brewery, and it's in the range of about 4.1% alcohol by volume and below. Next up is the slightly stronger best bitter, which normally ranges from about 3.8 to 4.7%. Next is special bitter, which is a little stronger, so special. And lastly, extra special bitter, or premium bitter, or ESB sometimes. The strongest of the lot, 5% and above. So not a terribly inspired system, but a system nonetheless. Interestingly enough, the most widely sold beer in British pubs is ordinary bitter. So there you have it. The Brits like ordinary beer. Should I have expected any less? Both of the beers I have today are premium bitters, so let's get right into it. You'll have noticed that I don't have my usual array of beer glasses lined up. You might not have noticed, but that's because pretty much every beer brewed in England belongs in an English pint glass. Not too surprising. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Abbot Ale, brewed by Greene King. Officially it's the Greene King Abbot Ale. I don't have especially high hopes for this one. I got it out of what is pretty much the bargain bin at my local supermarket. I think I got it for $3.50 or $4. So like a lot of other bitters, it says that it's got lots of fruitiness in it, and it's rich and malty and hoppy. So, I mean, I can't knock this until I try it. So let's try it. Get a bit of ASMR for you. Oh. So, unsurprisingly, that fills the English pint glass perfectly. There's not a whole lot of head, but what is there looks really smooth and foamy. The colour is a golden orange. It's perfectly clear. There's a few bubbles forming on the side there. Yeah, like I said, maybe half a finger of head. Kind of surprising. You see all those pictures of English beers that are really foamy. It could have something to do with it being from a can. So for appearances, I think I'll give this a 3.5. It's not especially exciting or special or anything like that, but it looks good, you know. It looks like a beer. It's a beery beer. So I'll have a smell now. There's notes of a few things in there. I'm getting like a really roasted malty sort of smell. It's coming through as caramel. It's also quite nutty. I haven't had too many bitters in my time, but I imagine that this is what a bitter's supposed to smell like. It's quite a sickly sweet. Sickly? Cloying? I think, yeah, cloying or sickly are the words I'm looking for there. For smell, I'm going to give that a 7.5. It's interesting, and it's got nice notes of caramel and nut in there. It's very cloying, and that doesn't bode especially well for the taste in my mind. So I'll have a taste now. Oh, what? When you first get that into your mouth, there's a really overpowering bitterness, like it hits the top of your palate really hard, and then it just disappears. That's insanely bitter to start. It's not a sweet finish though, there's no finish. There's no finish to this beer. It turns into water. Those malts are coming through really nicely. The caramel notes that I was detecting in the aroma are still there, albeit a little less prevalently. Yeah, it's kind of like a toasty flavour. I'd say it's a little lacking in its body. Like, there's not a whole lot there after that initial taste. That first bitterness hits you really hard, and you think, whoa, this is going to have something good to finish it off, or it's either going to be too bitter and be bad. But then it's just nothing. Like, it's just bland. It hasn't got a whole lot of character to it. All of the best bits about it are immediate. So you get that immediate bitterness, and you're tasting those caramel and nutty notes, but then there's just nothing, and that is disappointing to me. For taste, I'm going to give this an 11.5. If it was just the front half of the flavour I was tasting, this would be something up around like a 16 or a 17, and if it was just the back half I was tasting, this would be down around a 5 or a 6. This beer is really a game of two halves. Sweet football reference, yo. And in that, it's kind of interesting. So, yeah. The mouthfeel, I really do think that this beer needs more body. It's quite watery, but in terms of carbonation, it's really good. It couldn't have been better timing. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that makes it a bit better of an experience. And so for mouthfeel, I think I'll give this a 4. It's good. It's got a good palate sensation, and it's just let down a little by the flavour. For overall experience, I think I'll give this an 8. I've bashed the flavour a wee bit, but overall, it's a good experience. It's got a nice enough flavour, but it's made more interesting by the smell and the way that it feels in your mouth. It's hard to explain why I feel the way I do about this, but it's objectively, I don't think it's very good. But to me, I'd drink this. I'd drink more of this. I'd sit down and have a couple with some friends. I'd go to a pub and buy this. It's a good pub beer. I think that this beer is mostly defined for me by its initial flavour and the way it feels in my mouth. The other parts of it fell a little flat, but those two things were good enough to offset the rest of it. And so yeah, I stand by that 8. So if you add up all those marks, that comes to a 34.5 out of 50, which as a percentage is 69. Very nice 69. Wasn't even intentional. And 69% is a B-. So Green King Abbot Ale gets a B- from me. F***ing great, mate. Alright, so first one's out of the way. Stay hydrated, everyone. So why don't we move on to the next one, which is so British. The full title of this one is the WILLY'S Bombardier Glorious English. Bombardier. They're really doing their level best to be as British as possible. And I'm going to read the description because it's hilarious. Charge your glasses, troops, and enjoy a proper English beer. Savour the distinct aromas, then surrender to the perfect balance of malty richness, tangy hops, and sultana fruit on the palate. Brace yourself for a long, soft, spicy finish. Bang on. So I hope it's as hard a hitter as its description is. I'm more than satisfied with that pour. That's probably the best one I've done on the show. Now, before I forget, I'll just say that the Abbot Ale was 5% alcohol by volume, and that makes it 2 standard drinks. The Bombardier Glorious English is 5.2%, which is interesting because on Rate Beer, they've said that it's gone back down to 4.7, so I must have a really old bottle. Again, this is quite a cheap one that I found in pretty much the bargain bin at the supermarket. I think I got this one for $5 or $6. So the head's gone down a little, still looks good though. This is amber in colour, a deep amber. Again, crystal clear, can see right through that. The head is a little more frothy than the last one, but it's the same like off-white, smooth sort of head. For appearances, I'm going to give that a 4. Again, it's nothing hugely special. This one looks a little better though. I try not to be, but I'm slightly biased towards the darker colours. But something about the lack of bubbles on like the inside of the glass and the slightly better head make me favour this one over the last one. Get a whiff of this one. It's a bit hoppier than the last one, but you can still really get the toasted malts coming through. Again, I'd say there's a little caramel in there, though less than the last one. It's kind of like dried fruits. I think they did say like sultanas or something, eh? It's like a rich, sweet kind of smell, and some of that can be attributed to the caramel, but I think, yeah, the rest of it would be dried fruits, sultanas or raisins or prunes or something like that. It's not an especially aromatic beer, and it's difficult to get what I'm getting. It smells a bit like a, not the meat mince pie, but like a Christmas mince pie. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description, actually. Fruity, but sticky and sweet as well. I really hate mince pies as well, the other thing. So I've got to struggle to be objective here. For smell, I'm going to give this an 8. It's got a good smell. It's not hugely aromatic, but what is there is quite interesting. I think I said something very similar about the last one. So I'll have a taste now. Oh. Right. So you know how I was going on about it being, wondering if it was an old beer because they've changed their formulas back? It is. It expired about 2 weeks ago. Generally, you can look over that in a beer. I'm just going to make a call and I'm going to say that this is how it should taste, and so I'm going to judge it as though I hadn't seen the best before date. What I'm getting isn't great. Initially, quite good, quite sweet. I'm getting those toasted malts through, again, quite an earthy, bitter taste. And the sweetness that's coming through is those, what says sultanas. I'm going to say dried fruit as a whole. But after that initial sweet-bitter combination, it becomes metallic. It's not very nice. It's hitting the back of my throat and it tastes like dirty tap water, which is not a very good thing to say about a beer. That's a real shame because it smelled interesting. Positive notes about it are those hops coming through. Dry fruit tasting hops is one of the key features, but yeah, it's all ruined. It really is ruined by that metallic aftertaste. So like before, this really is a beer with two sides to it. So if it was just about the initial taste, again, yeah, I'd probably give it like a 14 or a 15. So for taste, I'm gonna give this a 9. So yeah, there you have it. I'm failing this beer on taste. Like I said, some of it could be attributed to it being past its best before date, but I mean, only being 2 weeks past it, you wouldn't think it would make that much of a difference. Completely ignoring the taste, this is actually really good. It's retained its head quite well, and so it's properly carbonated, and this one is very smooth. So for mouthfeel, I'd actually give this a 4.5. If you couldn't taste a thing, it'd be really good. Not a compliment. For overall experience, I think I'd give this a 5.5. I'm really disappointed because the smell, while I didn't like it that much, it was indicative to me of a taste that was going to be quite interesting and quite rich. And what I got instead was pretty much dirty tap water. But it is saved a little by the way it looks and the way it feels. So it's still a pass in that regard. You couldn't knock this back quickly because it tastes bad. So yeah, 5.5. So if you add up all those, you'll get 31 out of 50, which as a percentage is 62, which is a C+. And I think that's pretty fair. So that's 2 more beers down and hundreds more to go, with any luck. I hope you've enjoyed episode 3 of Willy's Tasting Room. Oh, I forgot to introduce it. Oh no! It's funny actually, because I bashed on the British by saying they like watery beer and I had 2 watery beers. It's pretty much true. If you've made it this far through, thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more videos about me drinking beer and whining about it, why don't you click here? Or if you'd like to see an equally British episode of something, which is not very British, why don't you click here? If you're into beer like I am, I'd like to ask you a question. Have you heard of Untappd? Untappd is basically like Twitter for beer. You get 140 characters to describe a beer you've tasted, and then you post about how it was, where you had it, etc, etc. You also get achievements for drinking in different places, drinking different styles, drinking different countries. But beer, it's just a good time all round. So if that sounds even a little bit interesting to you, I'd highly recommend signing up. And if you've gone so far as to sign up, then why don't you follow me on Untappd? You can find me at Untappd/user/W. There's a link down in the description to my profile on Untappd, so if you've done all that, you may as well friend me on Untappd. Thanks very much again for watching, guys. I'll see you around.